In the bustling port city of Genoa, amid the cries of seagulls and the scent of salt in the air, a young boy named Cristoforo Colombo would stare endlessly at the sea. The son of a modest wool weaver, Cristoforo's fascination with the ocean began early. He watched the tall ships depart, their sails swelling like the wings of angels, and dreamed of the worlds that lay beyond the horizon. Books and maps became his refuge. He pored over the works of Ptolemy and Marco Polo, obsessed with tales of golden lands and distant peoples. The idea took root in his mind: what if one could reach the riches of the East not by sailing eastward, as everyone believed, but by going west? It was a notion dismissed by scholars, laughed at by sailors, and considered folly by merchants. But young Columbus, fiery in ambition and stubborn in will, would not be deterred. As he grew older, the sea became his tutor and confessor. He listened to sailors' stories in the taverns of Lisbon, studied the winds and currents with devout attention, and scribbled dreams into the margins of old parchment. One evening, watching the sun melt into the Atlantic, he whispered to himself, "There must be something more. There must be, beyond that horizon." Years passed, and Cristoforo became Christopher, a seasoned mariner with knowledge gained from voyages along the coasts of Africa and as far north as Iceland. He studied celestial navigation, calculated distances based on maps and winds, and held fast to his belief: the earth was round, and the Indies could be reached by sailing west. He often visited monasteries, seeking not only spiritual comfort but scholarly support. In the monastery of La Rabida, he found allies in the Franciscan friars who encouraged him to take his vision to the royal court. Armed with charts, letters of recommendation, and unwavering conviction, Columbus made his case to the courts of Europe. He was turned away by Portugal, dismissed by England, and ignored by France. But his passion never wavered. In 1486, he arrived in Castile, seeking an audience with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. It was a turbulent time for Spain, embroiled in the final battles of the Reconquista. Columbus waited years for his chance, surviving on charity and small patronage. He found occasional work as a cartographer and tutor, and he often walked the halls of power, a stranger clutching a dream. At last, in the spring of 1492, as Granada fell and Christian banners were raised over the Alhambra, he was summoned to the court. The royal court at Córdoba was a sea of pageantry and politics. Columbus, dressed in simple robes but carrying a portfolio of maps and dreams, stood among noblemen, soldiers, and clerics. He presented his proposal to the Catholic monarchs with fervent eloquence. He spoke of untold wealth, of spreading Christianity to new lands, and of bringing glory to Spain. He referenced the prophecies of Esdras and the teachings of St. Augustine, arguing that his journey was not merely one of discovery but divine destiny. Many in court scoffed at him. Talented mathematicians and cosmographers called his calculations flawed. One advisor muttered, "He seeks Cipango and Cathay beyond a sea he does not understand." Yet Isabella, deeply pious and intrigued by the notion of expanding Christendom, was moved. Ferdinand, pragmatic and wary, hesitated. The court deliberated for weeks. It was the intervention of Luis de Santangel, a royal treasurer and secret supporter of Columbus, that tipped the scales. He persuaded the Queen that the risk was minimal and the rewards potentially boundless. On April 17, 1492, the capitulations of Santa Fe were signed. Columbus was granted the titles of Admiral of the Ocean Sea, Viceroy of any lands he discovered, and 10% of all riches found. As Columbus exited the chamber, scroll in hand, he looked to the heavens and whispered, "God willing, the world will never be the same." In the sweltering heat of August 3, 1492, from the port of Palos de la Frontera, 3 ships set sail under the Spanish flag: the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Villagers lined the docks, waving and weeping. Children pointed at the great ships with awe. Mothers clutched their sons. The sea glittered with promise and peril. Columbus stood on the deck of the Santa Maria, his flagship, staring west. The sea breeze whispered secrets in his ear. "This," he murmured, "is the Sea of Darkness, and the Sea of Promise." The crew, mostly recruited from Andalusia, were skeptical. Many whispered fears of sea monsters and a drop-off at the edge of the world. Some prayed nightly, others grumbled and kept daggers under their belts. Columbus kept 2 logs, one with the real distance traveled, and a second, falsified version to soothe the crew. He shared stories, sang songs, and recounted scripture to keep morale high. Day after day, they sailed westward into the unknown, guided by stars and hope. On September 16, the magnetic compass began to show deviations, causing unease among the sailors. Columbus reassured them, though he, too, was puzzled. Weeks turned into a month. Food began to spoil. Morale waned. Threats of mutiny emerged. Martin Pinzon, captain of the Pinta, had to intervene more than once to restore order. Then, on October 7th, they saw birds flying westward. Floating vegetation appeared. On October 11th, a carved stick and a piece of sugarcane drifted by. Hope surged anew. At dawn on October 12, 1492, the cry rang out from the Pinta, Tierra. Tierra, land, ho! Chaos followed, cheers, tears, and prayers. The crew scrambled to the rails, eyes fixed on the green strip on the horizon. It grew into palm-lined shores and golden beaches. They dropped anchor and rowed ashore. Columbus, clad in velvet and gold thread, carried the banner of Castile and Leon. He knelt, kissed the ground, and gave thanks. The island, called Guanahani by its native people, was christened San Salvador. The inhabitants, the Taino, emerged from the forests with gifts and curiosity. To Columbus, they seemed innocent and generous. He noted the gold ornaments and saw the potential for trade and conversion. To the Taino, the Spaniards were strange spirits with bearded faces and floating houses. Columbus recorded everything meticulously. He claimed the land for Spain and promised to return with tales of splendor. The Taino language, customs, and adornments fascinated him. He believed them to be the people of the East, and he asked questions of Sipungo and the Great Khan. The ships moved from island to island, each one more lush than the last. Columbus named them Santa Maria de la Concepcion, Fernandina and Isabella. He never stopped writing in his journal. Over the next months, Columbus and his crew explored other islands, Cuba, which he believed to be the mainland of China, and Hispaniola, where he established a small settlement. On Hispaniola, they were welcomed by the Cacique Guacanagari. Gifts were exchanged, feasts were held, and a cross was erected. Columbus spoke of faith, salvation, and the blessings of the Spanish crown. But relations with the native peoples were varied, sometimes peaceful, sometimes tense. Misunderstandings abounded. Some Spaniards grew bold, others cruel. Columbus tried to maintain discipline, but tempers flared. On December 25th, disaster struck. The Santa Maria ran aground and was lost. With the help of the Taino, a fort was built from her remains, and Columbus left a contingent of men to guard the new outpost. In January 1493, with the Nina and Pinta, Columbus began the return voyage to Spain. Storms battered them, and for a time, all seemed lost. Columbus, fearing death, placed a summary of his discoveries in a barrel and cast it into the sea. On March 4th, the Nina reached Lisbon. Word spread quickly. Columbus wrote letters, recounting his journey and urging monarchs to act swiftly. On March 15, 1493, Columbus returned to Palos. Bells rang, crowds gathered. He was greeted as a hero. At the court of Ferdinand and Isabella, he was received with awe and celebration. He presented parrots, gold trinkets, exotic fruits, and several Taino captives. He spoke of vast lands, ripe for Christianization and conquest. Europe listened, mesmerized. Printers distributed his letters across the continent. Scholars debated, merchants dreamed, and monarchs schemed. His voyage had not brought him to Asia, as he believed, but it had unveiled an entirely new continent to European consciousness. A new age of exploration had begun. Columbus would undertake 3 more voyages, each more complex and controversial than the last. He never admitted he had discovered a new continent, believing to the end that he had reached the Indies. Yet, the world was forever changed. New maps were drawn, empires would rise and fall, civilizations would collide, and the horizon that once separated the known from the unknown became a bridge between worlds. The boy from Genoa had fulfilled his dream. He had sailed beyond the edge of the world and found a new continent, a land of great fortunes and wonders. A voyage of vision and destiny would be forever remembered. He, who sacrificed it all for glory. The Admiral of the Ocean Sea, Christopher Columbus.